Imagine a narrow street, lined with timbered houses leaning slightly toward each other, as if in conversation. The air carries the scent of wood smoke and tanned leather. Somewhere within, a hammer taps in slow rhythm, a sound that might have echoed here for centuries. Tonight, we'll step quietly into that rhythm, into the quiet, patient world of the medieval cobbler. This is a story not of battles or kings, but of the hands that shaped everyday life, of those who worked with small tools and steady patience, creating comfort and protection for countless travelers. As we wander through the cobbler's shop, we'll trace the outlines of their days, the rise of their guilds, the fragments of shoes that survived where people did not, and the quiet divide between those who made and those who wore. Let the sound of that soft hammering guide you, steady, deliberate, and timeless. In a small, low-ceilinged room, lit by a single window, a cobbler bends over his bench. The light falls on rough wood, on scraps of hide, on a scattering of tools worn smooth by long use. He works slowly, cutting, shaping, and stitching. Each motion is careful and practiced. The rhythm learned not from books, but from repetition, from years of watching the work take shape beneath his fingers. The smell here is strong, but not unpleasant. The mix of leather, oil, and wood smoke. You can almost hear the faint creak of a shoe being tested, the soft rasp of a file against the sole. Shoemaking in the Middle Ages was a patient craft. The cobbler worked with thick hides of cow or goat, soaked and stretched until pliable. Waxes and oils softened the leather, while linen threads often coated with beeswax held everything together. A single pair of shoes might take days to complete, every stitch part of a quiet conversation between maker and material. The day was marked by the work itself. Morning brought light through the window, warming the bench. Midday might mean a pause to eat a crust of bread or to trade news with a passing neighbor. By evening, the cobbler would set down his tools, perhaps turn the last shoe near the fire to dry, and sit back to listen to the sounds of the town outside. The closing of shop shutters, the murmur of people heading home. Imagine the stillness of that moment, the glow of the hearth, the faint scent of tallow candles, the satisfaction of a day's slow creation. As towns grew and trade deepened, the cobblers found strength in unity. By the 12th and 13th centuries, guilds emerged, associations that protected their craft, set fair prices, and maintained quality. In places like London, Paris, and Florence, the Guild of Cordwainers or Shoemakers became an essential part of civic life. Their halls were small, but proud, marked by the sign of a shoe or a boot swinging over the door. Within, masters and apprentices gathered to share techniques and to decide who among them might be allowed to call himself a craftsman. To join the guild was no small feat. Years of apprenticeship were required, years of sweeping floors, cutting scraps, and learning the feel of leather. Only when the master judged a student ready could he attempt his masterpiece, a pair of shoes perfect enough to prove his skill. If accepted, he would earn the right to his own bench, his own name above the door. These guilds did more than guard trade secrets. They cared for their own, supporting widows, aiding the sick, ensuring that even the humblest craftsman might find dignity in his work. And in the broader city, their shoes carried not just feet, but lives. Merchants to market, pilgrims to shrines, soldiers to war. The guilds stood as a quiet symbol of endurance, of people who built civilization from the ground up, one stitch at a time. Centuries later, when archaeologists began to dig beneath old cathedrals and townhouses, they found something unexpected: shoes. Some were whole, some fragmentary, pressed between layers of earth and stone, preserved by chance and shadow. In the damp soil beneath Norwich Cathedral, for instance, dozens of medieval shoes were uncovered, curled and shrunken with age, but still showing the fine stitching, the care of their making. Each one carried the imprint of its wearer, a child's small step, a laborer's heavy tread. Some had been deliberately hidden, sealed into walls or beneath thresholds. Folklorists believed they were placed there for protection, a quiet superstition that shoes, having shaped themselves to the human form, could guard a home from harm. Others were lost by accident, slipped from a foot, left behind in haste, forgotten in the churn of centuries. But all tell the same story, of ordinary people moving through their days, unaware that their worn-out shoes would one day become relics of an entire way of life. There's a strange comfort in that thought that something so small, so personal, could outlast kingdoms and cathedrals, preserved not by glory, but by use. In medieval society, shoes marked more than protection. They marked position. Nobles walked in soft leather, sometimes dyed and embroidered, their pointed toes curling like the fashions of court. Meanwhile, the cobbler himself wore sturdy, unadorned shoes, built to last, often patched many times over. And yet, in that difference lay a quiet balance. For all their finery, the nobles still depended on the steady rhythm of working hands, on the patient cobbler who shaped their comfort. Within his small shop, the cobbler might hear the clatter of horses in the street, the laughter of merchants, the songs of laborers returning home. But his world remained close, bound by leather and thread, by the steady sound of hammer and awl. He may never have seen the faraway markets or castles his work entered, yet in some way, his labor connected him to them all. Each pair of shoes was a small act of connection between ground and traveler, between the unseen worker and the visible world. Now, as the evening deepens, the workshop grows dim. The cobbler sets his tools aside, wipes his hands on his apron, and looks around the quiet space. The fire glows low, and the smell of leather lingers in the air. Outside, the streets fade into stillness, save for the faint echo of footsteps, someone passing by in shoes that may have been made here long ago. The rhythm of his work slows to nothing, and the night takes its place. In that gentle silence, you might hear the faintest sound, the memory of a hammer's tap, the whisper of thread pulled taut, the patient heartbeat of a craft that shaped the steps of history itself. And now, let that steady rhythm fade with you into quiet rest as the cobbler's day ends and yours drifts softly towards sleep.